Mars and Ketu, Mars with another node of the moon. This is an interesting combination as well. Anytime we get the nodes with a cruel planet or a Krura planet, it's always typically going to be interesting. Mars and Ketu shows in past lifetimes a person who's probably spent a lot of time focusing on Martian things, on logic, on achieving their goals quickly, on having strength of character, on being very good to know when to pick fights and how to decisively disable their opponents, things of this nature. So when we get Mars and Ketu together, if we consider what's stated in, what's that book? Beneath a Vedic Sky, by William Levesey. One of the things he says about Mars and Ketu is that a person can respond quickly to all the challenges that arise within the world. So they can respond quickly. They can take decisive action. It's something that a person can lean back on. We remember that Mars deals with energy and Ketu deals with reorganization. We're learning how to improve upon that energy that Mars represents. So with Mars and Ketu, the person is learning to develop greater capacity for faith, for going beyond their mind and going beyond their logic, because they've got that skill set. They're very logical. That's the kind of person you get in a debate with them. They will anticipate every turn you're going to take. They will anticipate every argument that you've got. So they can be very frustrating people to talk to, especially if they have a point to prove or an agenda. So they're not really that easy to talk to usually, but they're very good at analyzing things. They're very good about picking things apart. So if you have someone who you want to do research for you, or if you yourself are a research-oriented individual, this Mars-Ketu combination can work very well. Some of the negatives. Ketu is going to amplify Mars again, just like Rahu will, because they act similarly. Ketu acts like Mars. It's a very fiery planet, so it can bring up the sense of annoyance, irritation. It can make a person hypersensitive to criticism. So if you've got a Mars-Ketu combination and you feel like people are criticizing you all the time, it's possible that, yes, they are, but it's also possible that you might be too sensitive to that. And so part of Mars-Ketu combination's issues are learning to let go of the sense of being overly sensitive, to realize that just because someone's giving you advice or pointing out a problem that you might have doesn't mean they're criticizing you. It can simply mean that they're just stating a point. So Mars and Ketu really need to learn to accept criticism and think about criticism. Mars and Ketu needs to learn to see the bigger picture, to not try to pick everything apart, try to force everything into a logical box. It shows a person that might need to meditate. Mars and Ketu combinations can show a person who might need to learn to count to 10, or to, before they respond, before they go on the attack, to defend themselves, to learn to slow down and breathe. Pranayama is excellent for Mars-Ketu combinations. Long, slow, diaphragmatic breathing at least once or twice a day to get to center oneself in the body, to balance out the nervous system. Oftentimes with Mars and Ketu, a person will have a sensitive nervous system. And so, again, they'll respond to things inappropriately. So Ketu and Mars, great for research and analysis. Great for being a good debater. Great for anticipating problems before they arise. Great for disarming one's opponents, because you can anticipate the problems before they arise, as I mentioned. But it's bad for having relationships with people, especially if you think everyone's criticizing you. It's bad if you have anger issues or you just blow up too quickly. It can be a very destructive force. But now again, destruction can be positive. If you are a demolition expert and your role is to blow things up, Mars and Ketu can be your friend. If your role is to point out all the problems in people's relationships, to tear them down and tear them apart so that they can rebuild from there, that's wonderful. If you are maybe a lawyer and your job is to tear down the defense of another lawyer or whatever it might be, that's great. But when it comes to interpersonal healthy friendships and healthy relationships, that can get in the way. So Mars and Ketu often indicate a person needing to take anger management classes, to learn to relax, to learn to not be so defensive, to realize that people aren't always criticizing you, things of this nature. If you can understand this and get a handle on that, well, then you can work with that Mars very well. But it's not just like Mars and Rahu. Mars and Ketu combinations are not always the easiest combinations to have. Because a person typically responds too quickly, they can be too aggressive, and they just have problems taking their foot off the gas. Mars and Ketu people can also be very controlling, overly controlling, because Mars and Ketu individuals typically think they know what's right all the time, and they typically don't think other people know anything. And that's going to be exceptionally true if Saturn is involved as well. So, we have to be very cautious of these kinds of combinations, because it can make a person overcompensate and be overbearing. But we have to remember the flip side of this. If a person has a lot of Mars and Ketu energy, and even with Saturn involved there in their chart, it can really beat a person down, which is why you might have that individual with this combination who's really quiet and never says anything, but they get triggered, or they just get set off by the littlest things. And you're like, where did that come from? I thought this was just the sweetest, quietest person ever. But it turns out that they have this deep cauldron of anger boiling deep in their consciousness. So you really need to take some time for relaxation, reflection, anger management, learning how to be calm inside, and learning how to see when someone is just giving advice or when they are just being difficult, because they're not always being difficult, but Mars Ketu will often interpret that. Okay, so when it comes to things like personality and psychology, these are some insights into Mars Ketu combinations.